Oh, guys, by the way, we lost several trillion dollars. We're currently looking at how. Oh, look at that. The financial office blew up. Never mind.
It's almost like 9 million of us could disappear off the face of the planet, and nobody would know about it, like not even 100 years later.
They probably eat placentas for breakfast for all their stem cells. That's why they'll live so long.
Do you understand what Hank just said to you, though? Is that 9 million people disappeared, and you didn't hear about it until today, when we told you, and you probably still don't believe us. If you go and look it up yourself, though, the evidence is there. That's powerful to be able to just make that disappear from history.
That's
Armenian
extremely
genocide.
powerful.
What do you know about that?
Yep. The Young Turks. It's not a YouTube channel. It's a group of people who took people out after they disarmed them, gun control, and killed them in the wilderness. 1 million Armenians dead because they gave up their guns.
Just deny, deny, deny. Even after the media in the USA declared that it was actually a genocide, the Young Turks.
About how much safer the world would be if we all gave up our weapons.
Here's another one. Go on Google and type in old Tartarian maps. And you're going to see that a little over 100 years ago, there was an empire that went all the way from what we would now call the Levant to Siberia, Siberia, China, and Russia. And this Tartarian Empire was huge. I'm talking about, before World War I, like all these places were kind of part of the Ottoman Empire, and it stretched out. This Tartarian Empire is completely erased from our history, but it's still on the old maps.
I've never heard of that before.
Yeah, go.
It was but it was in my history book. That's what we're trying to tell you. I had history books when I was in first, second, and third grade that mentioned Tartaria, showed it on the maps. But today, nobody even knows it's around.
How old are you, sir?
Or it ever existed. 45.
Okay. I'm surprised to hear that. I really am. I'm glad somebody had it in the books.
Well, I can tell you it was due to budget problems in my school because the books we had were from the 60s.
Okay. That makes sense. The health book closed, right?
Yeah. We were not a rich school, so everything was, cobbled together. I mean, a lot of the books, I'm sure. I mean, there was books. I swear to you, when you opened it, the pages started to fall apart, and they were like, "Oh no, you're gonna have to go get another one." But those books had a lot of different information in them. I'll just put it that way. They looked at things a different way.
A lot of people don't know this, but Europeans aren't actually from Europe. They migrated into Europe, and they're actually from the Caucasus Mountains, hence the term Caucasian or Caucasoid. But they got European mummies found by a Chinaman, right, to be clear, that are 4,000-year-old mummies with red and blonde hair and the type of stitching that Europeans use for their blue jeans that we still use today, the same pattern. And these 4,000 and 3,500-year-old mummies in China, right, were not said to be there at the time in the mainstream history books until they found them, of course. But Europeans are not really from Europe. That's why they have the term Indo-European, which is a politically correct way of saying Aryan, right? And Aryan, that's a bad word, right? Because Hitler. But these Europeans, they would have existed about the area that Tartaria was. Now, what do you think these Tartarians did after World War I? I want to suggest that they died. So World War I was a whole bunch of Europeans going against this Ottoman Empire, whatever that is, right? And they killed a lot of people with communism and warfare. in those days because communism was really starting to take off. And all these people that died in this World War One, well, they were mostly European, Caucasian, right? And sure, some other people died in Africa and other people, but mostly it was like the United States and Britain and France and Germany and the players, right? Well, World War II was the same thing. It was another white war. So White War One was Europeans playing the game. White War II, Australia, France, Germany, you get it, right? And it was the same thing. But this war, World War III, White War III, whatever you want to call it, is different because we're waging war on all the brown people. Now, I say brown people because there's no such thing as black people, right? There's different shades. So I'm trying to be nice. I'm not trying to be racist, but we waged war on all these brown countries, and they're flooding north into the so-called Indo-European territories, right? And we know that proximity equals conflict. When tribes get too close to each other and they get too crowded, they go to war with each other. And that different tribes have different moral values and morals, and one tribe might say, hey, it's perfectly fine to smoke pot before you go to work, and the other tribe might say, no, you can't smoke pot before you go to work. You have to smoke pot after you work, so it'll help you sleep. We don't want you to be sleepy at work. You might hurt somebody. So these different tribes that have different rules. Well, people from other countries, well, they may not necessarily respect your rules because they were like, what? I can smoke pot whenever I want to. I can drink and drive. What, are you kidding me? I can't drink and drive? I want to do whatever I want, right? So that's going to cause conflict. But basically what it boils down to is that these three world wars seem to have the same goal, and it's depopulation. And it seems to be, now I might just be like out there, but it seems to be a certain group of people that need to go because, they're bad.
Actual attempters of world domination. We go back to those banks. Got to find out who's running them. Turns out it's the same people who print your books, tell you who was the bad guy in those other wars. They're all connected. They're all related.
All roads lead to Rome, but it's not the
Right.
only. It's not the only city with 7 hills.
Right.
There's actually 2.
I just wanted to ask, so what did the Vatican have to do with this all? Just wanted to ask.
Hey, I'm telling you,
Yeah,
man.
who did? Go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, bro.
I was going to reiterate. Yeah, do you know who the Vatican sided with and signed treaties with during these conflicts?
Nazi Germany. The Vatican completely backed Adolf Hitler.
So just remember that when you're presented with a narrative from the past, especially one that you weren't around to witness yourself, that you should be very skeptical. You shouldn't even believe anything we're telling you. I can tell you a million things, but I'm only telling them so you can go look for documents and accounts for yourself from people that were living during that time, not just to take my word for it. And try to put the pieces together yourself logically as to what really happened and what makes sense and what doesn't.
Yeah, because you got to use discernment. Does it make sense that a flat earther went and put Tartaria on all the ancient maps so that he could trick one kid who came and stumbled into a flat earth discord? Or does it make sense that, wait a minute, how did this empire get like completely erased from history other than a few maps and a few mentions here and there? That doesn't make sense, does it? Right? And it was like 100 years ago. They were on the maps. Like maybe 120. Okay, so 100, 120 years ago, because it's getting late in the game. They were on the maps, man. Tartarian Empire was on the maps, and it was huge. And now Tartar is like one little state over there in Eastern Europe, or the Russian, the old Soviet Union area. Now it's like one tiny little place. So what happened?
Probably their reservation. It was probably where they got the last survivors got sent.
Probably. But yeah, the Tartarians disappeared around the same time as communism was really kicking off in Russia. Bye-bye.